Welcome to African American Research and Census Records. I'm Rhonda Hoffman, the genealogy specialist in the Grosvenor Room at the Central Library in downtown Buffalo. Today, we're going to talk about U.S. Census population schedules, the 1850 and 1860 schedules of the enslaved, and the 1850 through 1880 mortality schedules. U.S. Census population schedules were taken every 10 years since 1790. There's a 72-year waiting period before they become available for research. So right now we have through 1950 available. 1960 will come out in 2032. One thing to keep in mind is that unfortunately, all but 1% of the 1890 census was burned in a fire. So just fragments remained for that census. The library has access to two databases that include the U.S. Federal Census. One of them is Heritage Quest Online, and on the last slide of this video, there'll be a link to that video. And the other that we have is Ancestry Library Edition. Ancestry Library Edition is almost the same thing as Ancestry.com. It's available for use at every Buffalo and Erie County Public Library location. So you can use that database on the library's computers, and you can also use it if you go in any one of our libraries on your personal computing device when you log into the library's Wi-Fi. So you can find census records if you just come to this first search screen and search. But this will also be searching all of the other thousands of databases that are in Ancestry. So a lot of times when I'm searching and I just know I want census records, I'll go to the search menu and click Census and Voter Lists. This will include foreign censuses as well as some state censuses. And we're just talking about the federal census today. So I'm going to go over here to the right and click U.S. Federal Census Collection. So all the different censuses are available in this database. You can see from 1790 through 1950, as well as some special censuses. And we'll talk about a couple of those in a little bit. It's very easy to search the census records. You can put in as much or as little information as you know. A good place to start is by putting in a name. And then put in an approximate year of birth. So I'm searching for James Bowman, and I'm going to put that he was born about 1877. And it's good to put where they were living during the census years. So this person lived in Buffalo. And you could put a specific city. You could put just a county without a city. You can put just a state. You can leave that blank if you needed to. And if you have a very common name, you may want to add in more information. What I find helpful in those cases is to put in their family members' names. Once you have all of the information that you'd like in the search boxes, you just click search. And here you can see we have a number of different hits. And you can see you can see some of the data over here to the right. So it can help you identify if it's the right person or not. If you hover over where it has the census year, it'll show you even more information, including who is in a household with them. So that'll help you identify the right person too. So this top one is the one that I was looking for. And so you can just click the link. And again, you can see all of that transcribed information, things like where he was born and his profession. And then you always want to look at the census schedule itself, because sometimes the people that index all this data that I just showed you, they might have indexed something wrong, because sometimes old handwriting can be difficult to read. Ancestry will highlight the person and their family who you clicked on. So here's James Bowman. The censuses from 1850 to 1950 all have really detailed information, and that time frame is the time frame we're going to focus on for this class. What you'll get everyone who lived in a household. So the census is a snapshot of who was living in a household together on the day, the official census day. So we see James Bowman, and then we've got a couple of his family members here. So you'll see Emma, and it'll tell you from 1880 to the present. The censuses tell the relationship to the head of household. So James is listed as the head, and then we've got Emma, his wife. We've got Everett, her son. We've got Molly Coleman, who's his mother-in-law. We've got a Maddie Trainham, and she's his aunt. And then we have 3 other people who are listed as lodgers. Something you'll also see frequently in census records are people's gender. So here you can see male and female. You'll see their race, so Black. And then you'll see their ages. And then you'll see their marital status. So you can see married and single. If they were widowed, you'd see a W, or divorced, you'd see a D. This census, starting in 1880, you'll usually see the person's place of birth, and that will usually be either a state or a country. So he was born in Kentucky, and his wife was born in Alabama, and his son was born in Georgia. And then you see where those people's parents were born. So that can be really helpful. So you can see James's parents were both born in Kentucky, and his wife's parents were born in Alabama. And from 1850 to the present, you're going to see people's profession. So he was a foreman, and this census gives even more specific information. It says that he works in a packing house. His son, it says he was a waiter on the railroad. From 1880 to the present, you'll also see a street address. So if you see way over here to the left, you'll see they live on Jefferson. And this is where you would see the house number name right here. So because there's not a house number, that indicates to me that they live in a multifamily home. So see how it says 456 here under George Henrique. If there's no numbers in these, that means it's the same place. It's the same building. So all of these people and these people below also live in that same home. So let's go back. I want to show you something on the transcribed information that we saw. So you might have noticed that we've got James Bowman, and then we've got a couple of other names listed here. If you see names or other data that's in brackets, that is information that is input by people who subscribe to Ancestry.com. So sometimes they think that whoever indexed the records might have transcribed it wrong, and that might be the case. You can see how there's a James E. Balvman. So maybe they thought the person transcribed it wrong, or they know that that's the real surname, and they, in fact, did transcribe it wrong. And then you'll see a name that's pretty different. You see a James C. Johnson. So that could be that they think the census taker wrote something down wrong, or they could know that that family went by multiple names. Maybe they're changed their name at some point. And that isn't the case with a lot of African Americans, those who were enslaved. There were often name changes. So that can be a challenge in African American research. One type of name change that occurred pertains to freed persons after slavery was abolished in 1865. According to author Tony Burrows, it was frequent for the formerly enslaved to have one surname soon after the Civil War and to change their surname by 1880. He says that one reason for that is that in 1870, only 5 years after emancipation, many formerly enslaved people still lived on the same farm or plantation or nearby. In a small community, the census taker likely knew them, associated them with their former enslaver, and assumed they had adopted that surname. Or the family might have used the enslaver's surname for a few years after emancipation. And so then, as time went on, they selected their own names sometimes. That information came from Mr. Burroughs's article called The Challenge of Tracing African American Identities. And that was published in the December 2023 issue of NGS Magazine by the National Genealogical Society. That article includes much helpful information about name changes of the enslaved from their time of enslavement until after the Civil War. That magazine is available for use in the Grosvenor Room, and I'll list the information about the article on the last slide for you. So next, have a look at the 1850 and 1860 schedules of the enslaved. I'm going to go back to Search and Census and Voter Lists and click the U.S. Federal Census Collection. And those censuses of the enslaved, again, they were taken in 1850 and they were taken in 1860. And those are keyword searchable if you search across this whole collection, but they are difficult to use, and I'll show you why. So I think it's best to search them individually. So I'm going to go into the 1850 schedule. So unfortunately, the schedules of the enslaved don't name the enslaved, except in rare circumstances where someone who was over 100 years old, they may have named that person in the schedule. But otherwise, the only people that are named on these schedules of the enslaved are the enslaver. So you're probably wondering, well, how do I even search that then? It's important to have a list of your family members who you'll be searching for, their genders, their ages, and places that they lived and their time frame of residence while they were enslaved. So you can try to identify them in family groupings if they were on a plantation together. If you happen to know the name of the family or family members enslaver, or the name of their farm manager, you can search for that person's name. And maybe you just know a surname. You can do that too. I'm going to do a search for the surname Herring. And I'm going to put in a location, Darlington County, South Carolina. So here are the results screen, and you can see, so the ages that you see listed here, these are the ages of the enslaved. If you wanted to see more detail, you could hover over and you can see the gender and the age and the area that that person was living. And I had searched for someone from Darlington, South Carolina. So I'm going to click on View Record for that person. And here you can see all of the enslaved by gender and age. And if we look at the schedule, you'll see there are a number of enslavers listed. And here's Henry Herring. And usually the enslaved are listed by age. Sometimes they're by gender, by age within the gender. So here you can see these individuals are males, and you can see they're in order by oldest to youngest. And then we see that then there are women from oldest to youngest. And Sometimes you will see other data. So up here, if one of the enslaved were a fugitive, there would be something marked in this column. And then the number manumitted. So if a number of them were freed, that would be marked in this column. And if someone had one of these health issues, it would be listed here. And so to be listed as a fugitive and someone who was manumitted, it would be these things occurred within a year before the census date. If you don't know the name of the enslaver, it would be a lot of work, but what you can do is you could put in the year of birth of one of your family members. And I usually would give it a little leeway, like plus or minus 1 year. You could put in the place that they lived or where you might have suspected where they lived. And if you do know the place they lived, I would make it exact. You would want to put in their gender. And then you could do a search. And then you could look through the different lists and see, you know, if you know that multiple of your family members were together, then you could see, are the right genders of people together on the same plantation or farm. You could also, if you're not sure of the enslaver's name, if you might have some clues, you could just try those names. You could try some of the family members' surnames. Maybe they were some of those individuals that might have taken the enslaver's name. Then you could try searching with that surname. Once you come up with some potential candidates for the enslavers, you could have a look at the library's African American genealogy guide. The first video in this series tells about how to get to this guide. If you look on the table of contents, there are some tips on researching enslaved ancestors. So you could get some tips here. And in the first video, I showed you how we have a number of how-to books on African American genealogy. And these books give tips on researching your enslaved ancestors. So the last thing I'm going to show you are mortality schedules. And they can have some important information for those of you who are searching for enslaved ancestors. I'm going to go back to search, back to Census and Voters, to the U.S. Federal Collection. And you can see down here at the bottom, U.S. Federal Census Mortality Schedules. So U.S. Federal Mortality Schedules were taken 1850, 60, 70, and 80, and for some states, 1885. These were lists of people who died within the year before the official census date. So if we're thinking about the census year 1850, people on the list would have died if the official census day was June 1st, then they would have died between June 1st, 1849 and May 31st, 1850. You can keyword search for names, but I'm going to just show you, I kind of like to browse these. So if you know where your ancestor lived, you could do this instead. You could choose the year that you're interested in. And then you could choose the state. I'm going to choose North Carolina. And then you choose the county. I'm going to choose Wayne County. Of course, these are very helpful because a lot of times for this early time frame, places wouldn't have necessarily kept death records yet. Like in New York State, we didn't have death records for the most part until the 1880s. So this is a great resource if your ancestor happened to die in a year before that census date. What's also really helpful is these records do name the enslaved. So here we'll see the people who passed away. So here we have someone named Frank. He was 80 years old. And actually this is a female. And it has their color, and then it has whether they're free or enslaved. So it has S for enslaved. And this has some great information here. The place of birth that was supposed to be listed would be the state, territory, or country. But a lot of times I see on these mortality schedules that they'll list a specific county. If they're still living in the state that they were born in, they'll list a specific county. So this is Wayne County, but this person was born in Johnston County. And then it has the month of death. So we've got May, so this would have been May of 1850. And then the cause of death, and this person, it says old age. And then if there was if they had an illness, like this person down here had cholera, and so that person was ill for 12 days before they passed away. And what's rare, usually you don't see this, but occasionally you will. For the enslaved here, the enslaver is named. It's got the first initial and then the surname of the enslaver here. So that can be a great connection. I wanted to show you one more. So if you ever wanted to, if you're in the record and you want to browse something else, you could change the year here by clicking on this year, or you could change the state. I'm going to change it to Virginia. And then I'm going to go to Alexandria County. And I'm just going to advance one page. And so what I see on this census is the enslaved are given surnames. So obviously that's a wonderful piece of information to have. I'm not sure who gave that surname, but it can be another clue to help you in your genealogy. Thank you so much for joining us. Here's the information about the article that I told you about. And then there are links to a longer class on census records and a class on using Heritage Quest to use the US Census as well.